Without further ado, let's head to the high plains of Laramie, Wyoming, the campus of the University of Wyoming, and bring in the new head coach of the Wyoming Cowboys, Jeff LInder. Coach, it's been a while, but it's great to see you. Let's catch up on some Cowboy basketball, shall we?
Yeah, great to be here, Jesse. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your transition into the 22nd head coach at the University of Wyoming. You come from Northern Colorado, a place where you led the Bears to some great success, 3 straight 20-win seasons. Why make the move from Greeley and head north to Laramie?
It was an ideal time during a pandemic to move, but I guess if you're going to decide to move, luckily Greeley to Laramie is about an hour and a half. So it made during the time when you couldn't really do much, it was able to make the commute back and forth. And when the opportunity came to be the next head coach at the University of Wyoming, for me, it was an easy decision. With the success that we had at Northern Colorado, there wasn't a lot of things that we had to do differently here than we would there. And so I just felt like it was a natural fit, having grown up in the area down in Denver, having spent time in Wyoming during the summer times as a kid, and knowing the history of the program, the league. I just felt like it was a really good fit for me and my family.
That's a place that has had some great success in the not-so-distant past. We look forward to you putting your stamp on the Cowboy program. If you have a question, media members, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get you in queue. Our first question for you, Coach LInder, comes from John Mallory at 93.1 The Ticket in Boise. John, we're not hearing you. If you can unmute yourself, possibly. Well, we'll work out those technical difficulties with John. Let's go to BJ Rains in Boise.
Figure John Mallory can't get his mic going there. Hey, Jeff. Appreciate Jeff. What's it going to be like going up against Leon and Boise State again now that you're back in the league? And what's it been like already in the coaches' meetings with Leon and stuff? And what are just your thoughts on being back, having to go against him in Boise State?
It's going to be different being on the other side, even though back in the day when I was at the University of San Francisco, we came in and played Boise State the year before. I actually went with Leon to Boise, and so it'll be tough, to go against him for the 2 or 3 times a season. But it's also kind of good to have an ally in the league and somebody that you can call and bounce things off of, and just really appreciative. I mean, I wouldn't be here in the position I am if it wasn't for the opportunity that he gave me at Boise State back in 2010, and just the freedom, and how much he delegated to me just allowed me to grow in so many ways and really prepared me to be a head coach without ever being a head coach. And so just very fortunate for the opportunity he gave me, and look forward to getting back to Taco Bell Arena and seeing you and Mallory across the floor.
Extra Mile Arena now, Coach. Hey,
I forgot about that. That is true.
I know you didn't actually get a chance to coach Derek Alston. I know that when you left, he came in right after that. But were you involved at all in Derek's recruitment or seeing him? And if maybe not, but if you were, what to see what he's become, and obviously now the preseason player of the year after coming in as a 148-pound walk-on. What are your thoughts on DA, if you have any?
Yeah, no, and Derek was 1 year removed from me. My last recruit was Justinian Jessup, and so
okay.
But Derek, I'd known, with Coach Riley having been there and Coach Beckner at the time. I mean, they really spoke highly of him, and just one of those guys that you have to find when you're at a Boise State, and we did such a good job of identifying those guys, those walk-ons. I mean, starting with Jeff Loriaga back in the day, and then you had a guy like Rob Heyer. I mean, both those guys were key contributors on NCAA tournament teams. And then, in the case of Derek, I mean, that's, what, we kind of made our money on at Boise, was trying to find those late bloomers, those late developing guys, and trying to really kind of project what they're going to be down the road. And they did a good job. Coach Riley, I think, was the one that kind of spearheaded his recruitment and really identified him, and he's turned into a great player.
Thank you, BJ. Our next question for you, Coach LInder, comes from Michael Katz, the Laramie Boomerang.
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me?
I can, Michael.
Obviously we got the preseason poll yesterday. You guys were picked 9th. I'm not sure if that's something that you guys are cognizant of, that you look at. Is that something that you guys are aware of? Do you think that's about right for where this for where this team is, and we also got the all-conference team list, and Hunter Maldonado was not on there. Are you surprised at all by that?
Well, I mean, the only numbers I'm really worried about and focused on now is just the number of guys that I can get to practice on a daily basis with COVID and contact tracing. And so, when you look at the the preseason conference standings, it's, as I told our guys, I mean, we gotta earn that respect, and the only way that happens is on the court. When I was an assistant coach at Weber State back in the day, when we took over with Randy Ray and myself, and kind of the same situation, had 3 returning players, brought in a bunch of new guys. We were picked to finish last in the media and the coaches poll, and lo and behold, we ended up winning the league and going to the NCAA tournament. And so, it's just a projection, but that's also motivation for us to, try to prove people wrong. But, it's our job, and rightfully so, to do that. And in the case of Hunter Maldonado, I mean, he's someone that I've challenged, and I do believe he's an all-league, first-team all-league guy, especially if he's healthy. And I think that's the biggest thing that he's really battled in his 3 years here at Wyoming is staying healthy. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's one of those guys that he's not an all-league guy just because he could put the ball in the basket and his versatility on the offensive end. I mean, he is a guy that I really can believe can be one of the top defensive players in the league with his his feel and his instincts on the defensive end.
Next question from John Mallory, 93 won the ticket. See if we can get those issues worked out. John?
Hey, Coach, you got me?
I got you, Johnny.
All right, thanks, man. Sorry about that. Your numbers, I know you're kind of the offensive guru, but you've been defending the three-pointer better than just about anybody in the country. You consistently put teams below that 30% threshold, keeps you in games. How big of a priority is that in a LInder program? And how much is that just guys working hard, but also recruiting the type of athletes that can defend the three the way you need it to be defended?
It's a staple of who we are. And the last 3 years, we've been number 1 in the country in terms of minimizing 3-point field goal attempts. If you shoot four threes a game and you make 3, and your 3-point field goal percentage is 75%, I'll take that any day of the week and Sunday. So 3-point field goal percentage can be a little bit misleading, although I do think with that 3-point line moving back last year, that really helped us. As you see, we were number 1 in the country in fewest 3-point field goals attempts, and then we were also top 10 in the country in 3-point field goal percentage defense. And so it's something that we really emphasize, and it's something on a daily basis we talk to our guys about. And just not being a math major and not being someone that does look at the analytics but not just overly emphasize them, I do think that at the end of the day, and the way the game's evolved, I mean, threes are worth more than 2, and I know there'll be a little bit of adjustment, changing leagues and going from the Big Sky, where night in and night out. I mean, the talent level of the guards to where they can really punish you at the rim making 2s. I mean, there might be some adjustments that we might have to make, but at the same time, during my time at Northern Colorado, we played a number of Mountain West teams, whether that was Utah State in scrimmages, Colorado State, UNLV, and Wyoming, and at the time. And so I'm pretty confident that what we'll do is, it's what we emphasize, and we'll be pretty good at it.
Coach, Bobby Knight once said, the best time to play a freshman is when he's a junior. That's not the case anymore, obviously, with kids coming in and they're more ready now and whatnot. I mean, talk about just that evolution where, these kids are getting younger and younger and they're playing more and more minutes at a young age.
Well, I'm going to have to play a lot of freshmen, Johnny, so hopefully they can play like juniors. I can't wait for them to become juniors, because right now, with the free year, that's going to be about 3 years, 4 years down the road. And knowing, too, that the Mountain West is, historically an older league, and you see the teams have had, success here recently, they've been really old. The Nevada teams with Musselman, San Diego State, Boise's going to be very old this year, Utah State. So it's one of those deals where, you have to have some young players and you got to build that way. But, as a program and as a coach, the older you can be, the better off you're going to be.
Coach, our next question comes from Davis Potter with the Casper Star Tribune.
Hey, Jeff, curious, who all are you working at the point right now? And if you had to play tomorrow, do you know who you would go with there?
Well, it's with us, we're a positionless offense now. I can't sit there and during a timeout and put P for positionless for all the players, or put an O. Ultimately, you got to kind of define guys, but it'll be the guys that have the ball in the majority of the time in their hands. I mean, Marcus Williams, a freshman from Houston, Texas, Quan Marble, who came off a tremendous finish to his freshman year, being on the All Mountain West tourney team, and then Hunter Maldonado will kind of be that hybrid point as well. I mean, the ball's going to be in his hands a lot. I mean, he led the team in assists last year. He can really see the floor, but usually the way our offense works, I mean, there's going to be a couple guys are going to have the ball in their hands the majority of the time, and the other guys playing off those guys in space and trying to confuse the defenses in as many ways possible.
We got about 7 minutes left here with Coach LInder. If you have a question or you have a follow-up question, you can raise your hand to enter the queue. Our next question comes from Jeff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal.
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm curious. I'm trying to pinpoint a little bit kind of what coaches are specifically doing about this uniqueness of the offseason and preseason. And certainly New Mexico has probably the biggest challenge because they're not even allowed to practice at all yet, even without positives. You've had a pause and stuff like that. What specifically are you changing with dealing with preparing for a season? And do you think it's been a little frustrating because you're implementing a whole new system?
Well, I mean, you could sit there and be frustrated by it, and it's very easily to do, and you got to fight that every day as a coach, is not letting your frustrations be known by your coaching staff or your players. And the hard part is just things change daily. You have no idea what one day is going to bring, but just making sure we educate our guys. I think we can control the environment when we're in our arena, when we're around them, but once they leave and now it's kind of out of our hands when you start falling into contact tracing, and we've done a really good job of that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it bodes it really is not an advantage for some of us who've done a really good job and have minimized numbers and created bubbles, to where now as you move forward and you really see, especially in this part of the country where cases are really spiking now, if somebody's test positive, which we had here 2 weeks ago and just got back to practice the other day, you are at a disadvantage with the fewer numbers that you have on your team that have tested positive, because now you're just not allowed to just go and practice and not worry about some of those things that some of these teams who've had multiple cases amongst their team have the freedom of doing. And so it's a challenge. It's a challenge that everybody's facing, and I think probably the biggest challenge is just conditioning. Having these guys our guys got back here in late June, early July, and hadn't done anything for about 4 months. And then when you get hit with these pauses, it's really hard. It's almost starting back from scratch. And so just got to keep adjusting, keep evolving, can't make excuses, and just try to get a little bit better each day.
I am curious, when you do have those pauses, do you take 2 weeks off and then just pick up again kind of where you left off? Or is there sort of a restart every time you have to stop, activities? Is there a step forward, step back kind of mentality?
Yeah, there's definitely a restart. And I think the biggest thing that you have to be really careful of, and as you're seeing right now, whether that's the NFL, whether that's college football, is just the injuries. And, we can't, yesterday we came back off a pause. Today, really for 3 or 4 days, we're not going to do anything really live, because during that stretch of time, that's when a guy pops an ankle, that's when a guy hurts a knee. And I think that's going to be the thing that you really see with these pauses. It's not necessarily, COVID is COVID, and there's a lot of impact, and it impacts different people in different ways. But the quarantines, the isolation, it just really affects these kids from a mental standpoint, and from a conditioning standpoint, which I think ultimately is going to lead to a lot more injuries. And so just be really aware of just the mental state of these kids right now. And then just making sure that we just try to provide as just a safe an environment as possible, not only from COVID, but also just making sure we're trying to minimize injuries, which sometimes it's hard to do, but it's just we're going to be at a greater risk because these guys are not going to be in as good a shape.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next question from Cody Tucker with 7220 Sports.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good, Cody.
Good. Hey, the state announced a couple days ago that you guys are going to be able to have fans in the stands, 25% capacity. I don't think a lot of teams in the conference are going to have that luxury. How much do you think, if at all, that's going to help with this new schedule where you're going to be playing these 2-game series in a matter of 3 days?
Well, I think for us to have any fans in the stands, I mean, I think it's a big advantage. I mean, where a lot of places there's not going to be fans, and from a offensive defense, from calls and picking up calls, and there's some things that when you have fans in the stands, and hopefully with the 2,500 to 3,000 fans that we can have, hopefully we can create a pretty raucous environment. And I think for us here in Laramie, and for everyone in general, I mean, just to be able to do something, and hopefully the community will really rally behind the team and support the team, and have an opportunity to really create a home court advantage, not with just the altitude, but also with the fan base.
Jeff, this is kind of a broad question, but can this team compete right now? I think fans are kind of, the last 2-3 years have not been great for the fans. Can this team compete right now?
Well, I mean, if you look off the last 3 games they played last year, I mean, to go through the Mountain West tournament, and as I've told the guys as well, it's easy to sneak up on teams when no one expects anything. And so now, like in the case of Aquan Marble, you're not coming from the from out of nowhere. I mean, you're now the number 1 or number 2 guy on the scouting report. You're not the guy that's on the second page. And so with that, you got to understand there's going to be a different level of expectation going into these games. And so I think with, those 4 returning players who played well down the stretch, and I really think Hunter Thompson is going to be a guy, especially in my system offensively, that's going to cause a lot of problems, a lot of confusion, just with his ability to stretch the defense the way that he can. And so I think with those 4 returning players, with some of the new guys that we recruited, now we're going to have some growing pains that we're going to have to fight through, and not being able to have the ability to scrimmage or exhibition games to kind of figure out kind of who's going to play, who's not going to play, and what our rotation is going to be. I mean, people are going to have to be a little bit patient there. But I think with a lot of us right now, with the conditioning of our players, is that you're going to see a lot more hockey substitution and line shifts with the way that we're going to be playing guys, because I don't think guys can play the number of minutes that maybe they've played in the past, just because of the conditioning that we're fighting with these pauses and with COVID.
Thank you, Cody. Our final question for Coach LInder will be a follow-up question from Davis Potter with the Casper Star-Tribune.
Hey, Jeff, you sort of touched on it, but do you anticipate playing more guys and expanding your rotation, particularly earlier in the year, to get guys prepared, just because you may not know who might be available from week to week?
Well, in the case of us, I mean, we, coming into the season, we have 11 scholarship players, 1 walk-on. So we have 12 total players. One of our scholarship players, Graham Mike, is coming off a knee injury, so he probably won't be available until maybe later in conference. And so right now, I mean, we're looking at 10 scholarship players, and including 1 walk-on. And so, I don't think there's been a real difference or separation from really kind of 1 through 10. I think we have 10, really solid, good players. And sometimes that makes it harder to decide who to play. But I do think right now, based off of kind of where things are at, us, I have 1 player who, hasn't tested positive for COVID, but has been hit with contact tracing with the school's pause, and then our 14-day quarantine. I mean, he spent, 42 days in quarantine or isolation during the first semester of his freshman year. And so with all these guys, I think it's just a matter of kind of, we're gonna have to adjust a little bit. As much as I'm a guy that likes to play usually around 8 guys, I mean, now this year, based off of kind of where things are at, I might be playing 9 or 10.
Thank you, Davis, and thank you, Coach, for your time here today. It's great to have you back in the Mountain West. We look forward to seeing you and the Cowboys at the AA here real soon.
Thank you, Jesse.
You bet. Great to see you. We'll let Coach go, and we now await the arrival of Hunter Maldonado, the leader of the Cowboys, who had a great season a year ago. Of course, he was a part of that team that made a great run in the Mountain West Championship Tournament, made it all the way to the semifinals between he and Hunter Thompson and Quan Marble. Those 3 really led that charge late in the season in Las Vegas, gave Utah State all it could handle in the semifinals. So it'll certainly be great to see those 3 as that core move forward with a new head coach in Jeff LInder. Let's go back to Laramie, Wyoming, and bring in the aforementioned Hunter Maldonado, the junior guard from Colorado Springs. Hunter, it's great to see you as always. I know it's been tough for you guys to get out on the floor and get some cohesion, but what excites you the most about the roster that you guys have put together, that you have been able to at least gain some traction so far?
I think the thing that excites me the most is just the amount of weapons we have this year, and how everyone's buying into their roles. I think it's definitely something I'm looking forward to play with, and just can't wait to get started in 2 weeks or so.
If you have a question for Hunter Maldonado, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get you in queue, and we will call on you. So you have a new coach, Hunter, and that's always can be a tricky situation for any player because the way things were may have totally changed and pulled a 180 on you. How has that transition been for you guys?
At the beginning, it was kind of tough, just kind of learning the new system, learning everything from Coach LInder. But right now, it's starting to get into a rhythm, starting to get in a flow, notice everything he's trying to teach us and kind of stick to his habits and what he's preaching, and it's going well right now.
Let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Our first question for you, Hunter, comes from Cody Tucker from 7220 Sports.
Hunter, how are you, man?
I'm good, Cody. How are you?
Good, thank you. I guess if you can put it into words, what is the excitement level and the difference between this time last year and now heading into a season?
I think the excitement level is at all-time high, especially since we're kind of starting late. Usually we play in November 1st, so I think everyone's kind of ready. Everyone's kind of itching to get out there and play another team outside of our own guys. So I think it's at an all-time high for sure.
What should fans expect from this group, Maldo?
I think a team that plays super hard, they come in, compete every single day, and we're getting better every single day. So I think it's going to be something fun to watch. A lot of our guys are able to shoot the ball, so we're going to be shooting a lot of threes, and it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be fun.
Thank you, Cody. Our next stop is the Casper Star Tribune and Davis Potter.
Hunter, you guys are picked ninth in the preseason poll. I mean, do you pay attention to that at all? Is that any sorts of motivation going into this season?
Yeah, I think so. But I've also been picked in the back half of the thing most of the years I've been here, and I think just kind of as we kind of showed everyone at the end of the year, we have the weapons to do it. We have some great returners here, and then the new core is mixing in really well with a lot of weapons there, as you saw a draft class coming into this year. So I use it as motivation. I think the guys use it as motivation, and we're going to go out there and have a chip on our shoulder.
Thank you, Davis. If you have any follow-up questions, you are certainly more than welcome to enter the queue. Our next question from John Mallory, 93-1 The Ticket in Boise.
Yeah, what has Coach LInder done for you guys in defending the three-point line that maybe the previous staff wasn't? He's led the league in that category for a couple of years, or led the nation, I should say. Just in now the new emphasis of defending the three, Hunter.
I think some of the things defensively are just kind of little knickknacks that are like attention to detail type things, and more of timing. I think my freshman year here, we kind of ran guys off the line, and then the past 2 years, we were just trying to get there when the ball got there. So LInder kind of changed it. We kind of categorized everyone as we did the past couple years, but the attention to detail is a little greater in what you're supposed to do for shooters and stuff like that.
Thanks, Hunter. And when you have a chance, talk to Coach LInder about Michael Jordan flight school, okay?
All right.
There you go. Tips from John Mallory. Thank you, John. Our next question for you, Hunter, comes from your hometown in the Colorado Springs Gazette and Brent Brigham.
Yeah, Hunter, I'm just curious, what did you do during quarantine, especially last spring? Did you come back home to Colorado Springs or did you stay in Laramie?
I came home for, I think, March for my birthday, and then when I was able to come up here in about end of May, I came up here, and then we had to do a quarantine for Wyoming, so I sat in my room for 14 days working out in my room, and then after that, just kind of been able to be on the court, kind of still COVID restrictions, but now it's kind of opened up. Yeah, during quarantine just worked out, did what I could, found the outside hoop, and did everything I could to continue to get better through these tough times.
Were there any past teammates or friends you had down here that you played with in pickup games?
Yeah, me and Deshaun, we go to the same trainer. We have the same trainer at home, so I'm always seeing him around, along with CJ Jennings. So there's a couple players I always find time to play with, and when I go to my trainer, they're always there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Hunter, the front range, you mentioned some of those players. The front range from Denver all the way up to Wyoming has always been a hot recruiting bed for the University of Wyoming. And I look at the recruiting class that Coach LInder has been able to put together. It's one of the top in the Mountain West. It's one of the top in the country. And he mentioned the idea that he's probably going to have to play a lot of young guys. Who are some of those young guys that have already impressed you so far?
Jeremiah Odom, he's really came out. He's going to be great for us, I think, as well as Marcus at the point guard position. And then, I mean, to be honest, X is a great shooter. Owen's a big that we could really use. He sets good screens. So I think all of them all have their special abilities in their role, and I think they're very good at doing their role, and I think that's what's going to make us be able to play 10 players.
Our next question from BJ Rains in Boise. BJ?
Hey, I cover Boise State, so I just had a question about Derek Alston. Obviously, was the preseason player of the year. As an opponent going up against him with his size and what he can do, what makes him obviously tough to go against, and why he was the preseason player of the year?
I think he's a great shooter, and he can get his shot off over most people with how tall he is, and obviously he can get to the rim and finish over everybody. So I think he's just a tough all around. He can score at all levels, and I think that's kind of what makes him so tough. And he's got range that can be. I remember last year when we were guarding him, we had to guard him out 2-3 steps outside the 3-point line because he can shoot it that far. So he's tough, and he can score at all levels. It makes him probably why he got picked.
Thank you, BJ. And our final question for you, Hunter, today, a follow-up from Cody Tucker from 7220 Sports.
Hunter, when LInder got hired, the first thing he did was go down and talk to you and re-recruit you guys to come play with this team. When you decided to come back, how shocked were you the class he was able to put together over Zoom, no less?
Can you repeat that last part of your question?
Yeah, just how shocked were you that he was able to pull off this kind of recruiting class over Zoom, no less, not even be able to be in these guys' living rooms?
I was really surprised, to be honest, but at the same time, just sitting there and talking to him, I kind of could see how smart he was and kind of what he's about, and I think anyone that kind of talks to him can see that. So being able to put together such a good class, I mean, for him, I think it was already had 2 commits going to UNC, and they were able to come over here with him. And so for me, I think, like I said, I was surprised, but just talking to him when he came down, I really expected it because of how smart and how good he can talk basketball.
Thank you, Cody. And Hunter, thank you for your time today. Exciting times ahead in Laramie. Appreciate your time today, and good luck getting some traction, getting on the floor, and good luck this season to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.